Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. There was a man called John Morton. He was the Archbishop of Canterbury, but he was also the chief tax collector for Henry VII. He knew that the king needed money, so he used to go around to all the barons and the lords and the earls and whatever, and they knew he was coming, and so they would either put on a very expansive feast to welcome him so that he would feel, fully sated and happy and wouldn't tax them too much. And what he would say is, of course, "Oh, well, look at this spectacular feast. You have so much. I'm going to tax you a little bit extra this year because you're so well off." And hearing it, the next lord would go, "Oh my God, no. No. So he would come, Morton would come to him, and this guy would put on a very, very small feast, not very much out, a little bit of gruel, only 2 guests, the third best wine, that sort of thing. And Morton would look and he would go, "Oh, my dear lord," he would say, "you must be so wealthy, since you eat so frugally and don't waste money on feasts. You must have a lot of money stashed away. I'll put you down for an extra bit of tax this year." And this was called Morton's Fork. Effectively, you had 2 choices, and both of them ended up with you paying more tax. Now, the reason I bring this up is because the SNP are absolutely desperate for money. Now, the other day, or yesterday in fact, I did a video about how they are increasing council tax by up to 22.5%. That's just flat across all the council tax bands. Everyone's going up different degrees, but up to the highest one, 22.5%, because they are desperate for money. And I joked yesterday that what's next? Window tax? I only meant it as a joke. I wasn't expecting them to actually do it. But they've announced today, now it's not technically window tax, but chances are you're going to be paying more tax because you now have more windows. We're going to have a look at this. How desperate for money are they that they are taxing you if you have, for example, a conservatory or a lean-to or a small extension or a garden shed? If you do anything to improve your life in the tiniest possible way, they're going to punish you for it because they hate the idea that someone, somewhere, is happy. Here goes. So now cash-strapped SNP want to tax Scots for building extensions to their homes. The Scottish Government is discussing the prospect of taxing Scots for adding an extra room on their homes or building a conservatory as they look to plug the £1 billion black hole that they have caused. So, you go in, you've paid a lot for your house, you paid your tax to go and that, you've taken away tax relief on your house, you paid that, you've built that, you had to pay tax to have the damn thing built, and now they want to tax you simply because you've paid the tax on having it built. They are so desperate. They are destroying your economy. Now, the thing is, they'll take all this extra tax off you, which is money you'd spend in the local community. It's now money you're not spending in the local community. So what happens to the local community? Well, all the shops start closing, which means fewer people working, which means they're not getting as much income tax, which means that building closes, which means they're not getting the rates, which means more taxes are needed. This is what happens in a high-tax society. You cannot win with a high-tax society. But they don't understand that because, as I explained yesterday, they're cretins. I've moved him up. He was a moron. He went straight through imbecile, straight to cretin. And he's taking all his little cretinous friends with him. Council tax discounts, which are usually utilised by the poorest in society, are also being explored by the government and local authorities. These include reductions in rates for single people, those on benefits, and students. So, apart from taxing you because you happen to have a conservatory or a shed or something like that, they're looking at the poorest in society who get their tax reduced because they say single dwellers or disabled or on benefits or students and things like that. And they're going to take away those so that they can tax them even more, because there's a chance that they might be happy and content within their means. You can't have that. Whatever happens, nobody under the SNP government is allowed to be happy. No one is allowed to have sufficient amount of money. You all must be impoverished and miserable. These plans are being considered by a joint working group, which is co-chaired by the Scottish ministers and the council umbrella group called COSLA. They are looking at short-term changes to council tax to address the budget crisis caused by the SNP. The Daily Record reports that these proposals were being discussed in a leaked COSLA paper, which also downplayed the prospect of the full revaluation of properties. It read, the JWG, the Joint Working Group, will continue to look at further areas of council tax reform, with further meetings scheduled over the summer. In other words, we need more money. We keep blowing it on vanity projects and on things that are of no use or benefit to anyone whatsoever. £8.5 million a month is going to pay spin doctors in the NHS. 10 million a year on embassies which aren't really embassies. They're pretendy embassies with pretendy ambassadors. 100,000 a year plus staff on an independence minister for a country which really doesn't want independence. Do you see the problem? Can you see why they need to put the tax up? Because they keep spunking money away left, right and centre without any form of control. I think it's time that the devolved government was dissolved, because it is absolutely ridiculous now what they're planning. The focus will be on other areas which could be brought in the shorter term to raise money, this is, such as aspects of revaluation, i.e. home extensions, the fairness of existing council tax discounts, and more effective targets of reliefs. So they want to take away every bit of relief, every bit of discount, and then add council tax for the very fact that you have done something nice to your house so that you can live somewhere nicer. How dare you want to improve your life? This means that councils could automatically revalue homes which have built new extensions, like conservatories or new rooms constructed onto the side of a house, and place them automatically in a higher tax band, and thus costing you more money. Council tax discounts could also be looked at in terms of who is eligible. The discussions involve 3 government ministers: Tom Arthur, Joe Fitzpatrick and Patrick Harvey. So I'd imagine that although Tom Arthur's there, Joe Fitzpatrick, and I'm pretty sure Patrick fits Joe, they are all... that it's going to happen, isn't it? There's no if and I wonder when and will it? It's definitely coming. You're definitely paying more. You're definitely going to be pushed over and entered from behind, because that's all they know what to do. They can't improve people's lives. They only know how to make them miserable. Scottish Labour blasted the SNP for forcing discussions about even more taxes to fill their budget black hole. Mark Griffin said councils have been left scrambling to fill the budget black hole the SNP created and tweak an outdated council tax system that the SNP promised to scrap. As if the looming threat of painful council tax hikes wasn't now enough, Scots may now have to have an extension tax to worry about. We are in the worst cost of living crisis in decades, and Scots cannot afford to keep paying the price for the SNP's economic failure. Time and time again you hear it, and yet you know there's people out there that are going to vote for these people next time anyway. It's like turkeys voting for Christmas. We previously revealed, this is there, which I will basically not go over. It's talking about the massive charge increase on council tax, which I'm not going to go over. I covered that in the previous video. Liberal Democrat MSP Willie Rennie said, "We need a sustainable form of local government finance that ensures more money is raised and retained close to home." Scottish Liberal Democrats have long argued that we switch to a system of land value taxation, which doesn't penalise homeowners for improving their properties. And the reason that local authorities are having to come up with ever more obscure ways to tinker around the edges of the council tax system is because it is a poorly designed system that needs root and branch reform. The SNP have been promising to fix this system for almost 2 decades, but talk is cheap and real action never seems to materialise. And there's Willie Rennie trying his best to do something about the problem. The trouble is, the SNP only know taxation. They don't understand cutting. They don't understand cutting expenses. You know, let's fire all the spin doctors. You know, that would be a good idea. Let's not have 10 million a year being pissed away on our pretend embassies. No, can't do that. Let's just tax people even more because we need to make them miserable. And that is ultimately their aim. It isn't even the tax. It is they're aiming for misery. Because then they can blame the misery and say, if only we were an independent country, you wouldn't be miserable. Here's the deal. You make Scotland a good place, you might win independence. Never going to happen, is it? Anyway, a Scottish Government spokesman said the Scottish Government is committed to a fairer, more inclusive and fiscally sustainable forms of local taxation. That's a lie. The group was considering a broad range of potential measures. So I've given you 3, which taken together will seek to provide fairness to the system. I thought of the 4th one, the simple one: dissolve the Parliament. Anyway, council tax reduction scheme would continue to protect the most financially vulnerable, and regardless of the property band. Nobody in Scotland will have to meet a council tax liability when they cannot be expected to afford. Well, if that's the case, why are you putting them up? Why are you looking at removing reductions? Why are you looking at removing protections? You're full of crap, every single one of you, because you're all absolutely desperate because you've screwed up the economy so badly that you don't know how to fix it. And that, of course, is the £1 billion that they know about. And I mentioned this in the other video. There's going to be another £1 billion that they don't know about once the court cases come in and people start going, we want compensation for the DRS. And they're already talking. It's happening. So where are they going to get the next £1 billion from? Dog tax? I shouldn't even mention it. They're probably listening. Anyway, I shall stop there and come up. It really isn't funny. They're putting people who are just barely hanging on into a position where they just cannot make ends meet. People will go hungry just so the SNP can fix the mistake. Well, they're not even going to fix the mistakes. It's just so that they can hang on long enough until the next election and get themselves another 5 years in power if they can. Because that's all they've got. They've got no solutions. No solutions whatsoever. All they can do is try and let the patient linger on and not die until after the next election. They need to be shown what the consequences of what they're doing is, and that consequence is hard times for them. Voted out of office, never coming back. And I don't just mean voted out and still having a couple of seats. I mean wipeout. Not a single SNP seat. Nothing. I don't care who comes afterwards, because whoever comes afterwards, it's got a terrible hard job. It really has. Whoever comes afterwards has got the worst job in the world, because not only have they got a terrible job in having to fix, the situation, but they're going to have to be compared to the SNP. They're going to have to fix the mess the SNP have left, which I think is possibly unfixable. The SNP are leaving a scorched earth policy. It is the only explanation for the way they're doing things. I think they know they're going to lose power, and so they want to make sure that what they leave is so bad that whoever comes in afterwards cannot fix it, and it gives them the excuse to come back the time after and say, well, look, this is the state of the play under, let's say, a Labour government. But it's only because Labour have been left such a hole in the ground that even with the most majestic bit of luck and the best, hardest work you could ever see, it's still not going to be good enough to fill, because anyone comes in, they'll have a 16-year deep hole to fill. It's unfixable. It may need to be completely restarted from scratch. Dissolve the Parliament. Give it 2 years under Westminster control. Let Westminster fix the problem. Go back in and reset the Parliament up, but reset it in such a way that there are no list MPs. there's only constituency MPs. You know, and have it that way. And make sure that there can be no, what's the word, majority government anymore. You know, there can only be a maximum number of seats for any party. Just to stop this kind of thing from happening again. Utter destruction. Anyway, this one has gone on far, far too long, and I'm going to stop. Thank you very much for listening. If you like what you hear and see on the channel, please hit the subscribe button. It really does help. And in fact, we are building up nicely. So do please hit that subscribe button, especially if you're a regular listener, a viewer who hasn't yet hit it. Leave a like, leave a comment. Please share the video. And until next time, stay safe, stay well. And please, God, don't give these people any more ideas for tax. I'm sorry. I kind of maybe did. Anyway, goodbye.